The story starts oddly. Jervis eagerly seeks someone to investigate an economic dispute, claiming he invested $10,000 in an architect. This investment was for a large London development project. However, months have passed, and no bricks have been laid for the promised shops and apartments. Jervis is starting to wonder, has he been taken for a ride by this architect? So he decides to enlist Poirot to uncover the truth. But you know what? Poirot is a top-notch detective. His case is always nail-biting murder mysteries. He's not here for a petty economic dispute. Just as Poirot's about to refuse, Jervis throws out an offer he can't refuse. The antique mirror Poirot has been dreaming about appears on the table. Poirot is suddenly stuck in a dilemma: accept and lose his dignity, or refuse and miss out on that mirror. At this moment, Hastings chimes in with advice. You're not busy anyway. Who knows? You might uncover something juicy. Clearly, Hastings knows Poirot's knack for getting into trouble too well. And in Poirot's world, there's never such a thing as a quiet investigation. The next morning, Poirot and Hastings hop on it. On their way, they meet Miss Susan, who claims to be Jervis' nephew's girlfriend. When she talks about the relationship, her face is full of worries. Turns out, Jervis wants his ward to marry his nephew. This way, his estate wouldn't fall into others' hands after he's gone. To keep them apart, this stubborn old man. He even cancelled the nephew's factory contract, putting the young man in serious financial crisis. On the train, Susan opens up to Poirot, declaring she'll never let Jervis ruin her life. Hearing her grievances, Poirot secretly sighs. This case is clearly going to be complicated. When the train arrived, Poirot hopped into the nephew's car and reached the estate, where he found Jervis busy at work. Then, the butler led Poirot to the study, where he arranged for him to encounter Jervis and his assistant. Jervis reiterated his true intentions to Poirot, investigating the economic dispute, but actually worrying more about the architect. Concerned about possible romantic entanglements with his ward, he felt that any loss was minor, but he absolutely couldn't let outsiders disrupt his carefully laid family plans. Just as he was speaking, a handsome gentleman quietly entered the room. This was the architect Jervis mentioned, and upon learning Poirot was present, his face instantly turned ashen. He clearly understood Poirot's purpose for being there and looked at him with a complex expression, though Jervis refrained from exploding. Instead, the architect escorted his guest to the garden for tea and thoughtfully reminded Poirot about the time. Although Poirot had no interest in this family dispute, now that he was already there, he believed that showing at least some respect was indispensable. In the garden, he unexpectedly encountered Jervis' wife and her friend. Poirot displayed his old-school English charm, but the elderly lady suddenly mentioned a prediction of death. She was obsessed with some ancient Egyptian supernatural stuff, even convinced that the necklace around her neck, said to be over 3,000 years old, could communicate with the dead. Of course, Poirot didn't believe it, but as a seasoned detective, he respected beliefs. So he chalked up her words to the eccentricities of a rich lady and didn't think much of it. Little did he know that absurd death prediction would dramatically come true that very night. Soon, night descended, and Hastings softly knocked on Poirot's door. Seeing his friend still undressed, he looked confused and anxiously asked Poirot if he hadn't heard the dinner bell. Turns out Jervis, this stubborn millionaire, even timed the dinner bell down to the millisecond. The butler would ring the bell at 8 p.m. as a heads-up for the impending feast. Then, at 8:15 p.m., the second bell would sound, and everyone had to be promptly present in the dining hall. However, when Poirot glanced at his watch, it was barely 8:06 p.m., so he figured Hastings must have misheard. As everyone was making the final preparations for dinner, a sudden gunshot shattered the night's tranquility. At the sound of the gun, everyone rushed out of their rooms into the hall, asking each other what just happened. Amidst the chaos, Poirot keenly noticed the crucial detail: the host, Jervis, was missing. His wife, who would never be late, was also absent. This ramped up Poirot's alertness. He immediately approached and knocked on the door. However, there was no response, and more unsettlingly, the door seemed to be locked from the inside. As the crowd attempted to break down the study door, Poirot noticed the assistant swiftly pick something up from the floor, acting quite poised. But now wasn't the moment to pursue this matter. Finally, with a loud bang, the study door burst open. What met their eyes was an inconceivable scene: Jervis' body at his desk, blood-stained books, gun clutched. Even more distressing for Poirot, the antique mirror he had been longing for seemed to have been shattered by bullets. Poirot didn't believe in supernatural forces. Reporting the murder was safest. His compatriot, Sheriff Gape, investigated. The trio of friends had no time for pleasantries before stepping into the study, where Sheriff Gape quickly assessed the scene and made his deductions. He believed that wealthy businessman Jervis had very likely taken his own life. Firstly, the study had all the hallmarks of a locked room mystery, with the only key resting commonly in Jervis' pocket. Secondly, the doors and windows of the study were locked from the inside, with the curtains drawn tightly shut. No matter which way the perpetrator slipped away, clear signs would be left behind. Most importantly, Hastings found a note with just one word: sorry. All the signs pointed to a simple conclusion: Jervis had chosen to end his life due to guilt. However, this seemingly rational deduction was filled with undeniable contradictions under Poirot's sharp gaze. First of all, the motive behind Jervis' supposed suicide was puzzling. After all, he had come to Poirot to investigate the architect's dealings with his ward, ensuring that after he was gone, his assets would smoothly transition to his direct descendants. Why did he, obsessed with controlling his future, end it all with just a brief apology? It didn't match his strong character. Secondly, Poirot noted that Jervis had fired the gun with his left hand. At the auction, he distinctly remembered the millionaire raising his paddle and handing over business cards with his right hand, even signing documents with it.